What's happening, guys? Today I want to tell you about a knife that has rode on my hip for at least 20 years. And I love these knives because they're still handmade in small batches. They come with custom kydex sheaths, and they have horizontal, vertical, and inside the waistband deployments, and even for lefties. And so if that interests you, stick around because today I want to tell you about the Bob Dozier Master Skinner. So as you might can tell, I'm a big fan of Bob Dozier's knives, and probably biased because they're made in my home state of Arkansas. But anytime I put something through its paces for a long time and I'm pleased with it, I like to give a long-term review. And as you can see, I've picked up several of these knives because I've been impressed with them, and they're not particularly cheap, so that shows I have an affinity for them. But the one I've spent the most time with by far is this Master Skinner. I am not a knife expert, but I just want to give you an everyday opinion on how this has held up over the years. And so a little bit about this. This is D2 steel. Dozier knives are known for their heat treat on their D2 steel. And in my non-qualified opinion, this is a knife that's very easy to sharpen. It's an amazing slicer, and it holds an edge relatively well. I use this for, I use it during duck season for duty on ducks and geese. I also use it during deer season where it gets put to use on at least probably 3 deer a year, and a variety of other things. In fact, when I get to sharpening it, if it stays in the kitchen too long, my wife puts down her German kitchen knives and grabs this. She loves it too. But it does hold an edge fairly well, but that's not as big of a deal because it's so easy to get sharp. But I am probably most of the way through my second deer before I feel like this really is holding me back as far as sharpness. And I'll put up some screenshots showing you how the blade is held up over the years. It's a 30-degree hollow grind. So I've worried at some point, sharpening it so much over the years that it might start to get to a point in the grind where it's not having as fine of a blade angle as it had. And that's certainly not been the case. It still sharpens up very easily, holds an edge very well. Now, something to point out is this is made for slicing, and that is what you're going to get here. So if you want something that's ultra tough, this is probably not going to be the route you want to go. But if you want something that is just superbly balanced and crafted and is a great slicer, this is a great option. So a little bit about this particular model. Black micarta scales. He rivets those in there. It does have a full tang design, very beefy. Again, has this swept drop point. And this is a skinny knife, so there's a lot of belly here, which I really like. When you're caping out and things, it's particularly helpful. Doesn't have any jimping, but I will say just the thickness and the weight of it, it holds in your hand and rides in your hand very well. And I was worried about that because over the years, this micarta has gotten kind of slick. And you can see it's really darkened over time, but I do not feel it's slippery. I will say this doesn't have as much grippiness as a lot of your knives. So if you're in a lot of wet conditions, again, this might not be the knife for you. But the micarta, I'll show you, it's held up pretty well over the years. This particular knife, these have been babied. This particular one has been used. And all that's going on is a few rub marks in the micarta. There's a chip here that I'll show you from where I dropped it, and it just happened to land ever so perfectly on the concrete. And unfortunately, but still works fine. The fit and finish on the tang here is still perfect. There's no raised edges. Great craftsmanship. And the blade itself, I've probably put in some hasty sharpening jobs on it over the years, and it's got some marks on it. However, it still looks pretty good. You can still see those signature vertical grinds that he puts on here. And I will say, you can probably even see in the picture, there's a tiny little bit of surface rust. That definitely happens with this particular steel. I just hit it with a rag and some oil and scrub it a couple times a year, and it's good to go. You do want to make sure that you get it good and dry before you put it in this kydex sheath. Now, something to note, Bob will make you a replacement sheath, or if you find a knife and it doesn't have the sheath you want, or if you have a knife and you want a different type of sheath, he'll do that as well. And that's what happened with this knife. This knife came with a right-handed sheath, but I lost it after several years. When it was time to get another one, he has to have the knife because he custom makes each one for that particular knife. But when it came time to get it, I was able to get it in the left hand. And so I just go with a vertical, in this clips in really easy, but it's not coming out. I've never had any issues with this coming out. And with it being kydex and riveted, I feel very safe, like I'm never going to get cut by this knife. So very high quality like those. You can just see easy to get out, but once it's in, it's there. And again, you can buy vertical. In fact, I believe this particular knife runs a vertical sheath. It is a right-handed, but yeah, lots of options there. But I love the way he does these sheaths. Now, something I want to note is you do not have to have kydex. This particular model that I have comes with a leather sheath, and Dozier does the leather work themselves, and it's really good. The stitching on this is very nice, and so if you're into leather sheaths, this is very nice as well. But it does, I believe, it has kydex built in here for this particular knife, because the detent on it is very, very nice, and again, feels just as secure as the other models. And then these are actually, you see I've got some burled maple, I believe, here, and then these two are different variations of his stag handles, and so he does a really good job with those. Now, something to mention on the rivets. The rivets on this particular model, I haven't had any issues, but on some of these, a couple of these are safe queens. This knife's been, I've spent a lot of time with this knife. These two have kind of been safe queens. The brass rivets on them, they start to tarnish. They take a little upkeep. But on this particular one, I don't know what this is, stainless or something. I've had zero issues, and I've definitely not babied this knife. When it comes to sharpening, nothing special. I usually touch it up with the Spyderco Sharp Maker. In fact, while I've got them all out, that's what I'm going to do today. But something to note is A.G. Russell Knives is there in Springdale. I see it every time I'm up there, and that's the same general area that Dozier Knives are in. And so they do carry a lot of fixed blade knives, and I've had people ask me, hey, you like Dozier knives? The ones I get at A.G. Russell, are those real? My understanding is if you got this stamp, and I'll put it on the screen, showing that it's an Arkansas-made Dozier, then it is legitimate, including those ones you're getting from A.G. Russell. Now, I want to make a caveat is if you have a cheaper knife, particularly a folder that's got the Dozier name on it, and it doesn't have that stamp, that is probably a designed by Bob Dozier knife that is produced overseas, and it is not even in the ballpark of these knives. So if you have one of those K-bar Doziers, lower line ones like that, and you think there's nothing special about that, you might want to give these a shot, because it is not the same craftsmanship. So these are not particularly inexpensive knives. When I first got into these 20 or so years ago, they were upper 200s. I think this particular knife was mid twos. I may even paid a premium for these two, and this one, if I recall, if you made me guess, was somewhere between $260 and $280. A lot of these models you can still get for that kind of price, particularly on A.G. Russell's site. And so it's really impressive to see somebody who hasn't greatly raised their prices over time. In fact, I looked up, and I think these sheaths are about $5 more now than what I got my last replacement for several years ago. And so just very pleased to see that. So these aren't particularly cheap knives, but they are handmade. The craftsmanship is great, and they're not just skyrocketing the price on you. You're still getting a lot of knife for similar money to what they've always cost, best I can tell. So you can see how it looks after 20 years of use. It's held up very well, and I would say the blade is pretty much good as new. Now, if you're looking for a handmade knife with a nice kydex sheath, and you want a variety of options as far as handle material, blade geometry, there are so many models I can't even keep track of them, then this is one for you to check out. Still made in a relatively low-tech small shop in Northwest Arkansas, and knives that I've greatly enjoyed and have served me well. Guys, I appreciate you checking out this short review. Knife aficionados, weigh in below. Tell me some facts. Tell me what you think about this particular line of knives. And if you have them, by all means, let me know how they've held up for you. As always, I really appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to check back soon, because I have more content handed your way soon.